Hey everyone, so we're looking at the book of Malachi, which is that book where if you sit down, it's kind of hard to see what's going on and what's God's saying. So I wanted to take a couple weeks to say, what does this mean for us and how does it change the way that we live? And so we've been looking at the Old Testament book of Malachi from the perspective of this loving parent dealing with this rebellious teen and this dispute going back and forth. And the key dispute is over the issue of love. And it's like the teen saying, you haven't loved me. And so God's going to respond to that. In Malachi chapter 1 and verse 2, it says, I have loved you, says the Lord. But you ask, how have you loved us? And the Lord replies, was not Esau Jacob's brother? Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated. Now, I just kind of want to stop right there, because whenever we see the word hate and we think of God hating something, it seems odd and it seems uncomfortable for us to look at. I mean, how God is love. The New Testament teaches God is love. So how could he hate? What's going on here? And I want us to understand that what God's doing here is he's trying to prove this intense love to the nation of Israel. How he's chosen them to be the special representative. They're sort of been adopted into his family. And God's saying, look, I loved you, and so much so that by contrast, it really feels like hate for anybody else in the world. That my love for you is so incredibly strong. It's really what I believe is an issue of hyperbole. Hyperbole is where we say something almost exaggerated to make a point, where, like, if I say, I've told you that 1,000 times. Well, I probably haven't told you that 1,000 times, but my point is not that I've literally reached the 1,000th time of speaking and now I've told you 1,000 times. My point is I've told you a lot. I've told you again and again, and so I'm communicating that with hyperbole, and I believe that. I'm convinced of that after much study that what's going on there is hyperbole, because Jesus actually does the same thing in Luke 14 and 26, where he does it in a very similar way that kind of reflects back to this. He says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. You know, wait a second, Jesus, did you really say that in order to follow you, to be your disciple, I need to hate everybody, that I should go home and I should be angry and spiteful towards everyone? No, that's not what he's saying. He's speaking in hyperbole. Jesus elsewhere tells us to love every single person he just mentioned. Other parts of the scripture, I mean, Ephesians 5 says husbands should lay down their life to love their wife. To lay down their life. And so Jesus isn't saying you should never love these people. He's speaking in hyperbole fashion that our love and devotion to him should be so great that it's as if every other relationship we have seems hateful. And when God says to the nation of Israel, Jacob I have loved, Esau I have hated, he's saying, how could you, of all people, think that I possibly don't love you, when my treatment of you has been so incredibly special, that I've adopted you into my family, I've blessed you so incredibly? How could you possibly think that I don't love you? And really, where it goes is down this sort of misunderstanding of what love actually is. You see, the nation of Israel was saying, God, you haven't loved us because you haven't given us everything we wanted. And God's looking at them and saying, you don't really understand what love is. Love is something different. In fact, the way that he speaks of love in this text with this verb tense and with this meaning, it's really this love that says, I'm with you no matter what. I'm going to stick with you. You can be hateful towards me, you can be angry towards me, and it won't change the fact that I love you. So God said, when he says, I have loved you, in that language, in that time, that would have been a powerful message to say that you're looking for a moment of love, when I'm giving you a process of love. This is parent to child. I'm not just going to give you ice cream because you want it for supper, because that's what your taste buds want and that's what's going to make you happy. No, the loving parent in me is going to say, I can't give you that until I give you what's nutritional, what's healthy. I need to teach you character. I need to teach you morality. I need you to even understand what's most important in life, so that you don't try to find most important things everywhere else. It's this parent-child relationships where God's going, I've loved you, and you really don't even understand what love is. You think love is materials in the moment, And it's really so, so much more. See, the love that he talks about here is not a love of appeasing and giving what you want. The love that he talks about here is a love of association. A love of, I'm not going anywhere. I'm by your side. I'm with you no matter what. Jeffrey Anselm, he calls it, he says it this way. He says, wealth and prosperity are not always signs of God's blessing, and difficulty is not always a sign of his judgment. God is a loving father who disciplines the children that he cares for. See, Esau had everything going for him as you compare one nation to the next. They had a king, they had freedom, they had no oppression, and Israel's going, what about us? This is a disaster. God, you don't love us. And God's going, I do love you. This is just the part of love that you don't like sometimes. The part where I'm disciplining you because I'm by your side, and I'm much more in favor of you having the greater things than the lesser things. I could give you toys, I could give you ice cream, I could spoil you, but really character and knowing what real love is far, far more valuable than just giving the things that you want. That statement, I have loved you, is a powerful statement, and we see God's love repeated to us again and again in the New Testament. And the idea is that Israel, and I want us to have this experience where we can anchor our life in the love of God. Not long ago, I was out in the bay in a boat, and it was kind of getting rough, and we noticed that the boat was moving along with the current instead of being anchored in place because our anchor was too small. It just wasn't heavy enough. It didn't dig into the bottom. It didn't hold us. And so much in life we try to anchor ourselves with is the things that other people think about us, how successful we are, whether or not we've done the things that we wanted to do, or we just try to anchor our lives in so many things. God says, I have loved you. And that needs to be the anchor that holds you through all the tough times in life.